Hello, I'm Crystal Clear Mystic, aka Crystal Hoban, and I want to talk today about ascension symptoms, clearing, um, that kind of thing. I'm not sure what you call it, but usually what I would call it is like an ascension, a chakra clearing, um, some type of shift that's occurring that you can feel in your body. And when you're very energetically sensitive, like I am, I can feel it in my body very, very prevalently. So I'm usually aware that something's going on, but in the beginning of my awakening, I had no idea what was actually happening. I felt like I was like losing it a little bit because the sensations that come from these ascension symptoms can be really intense at times and feel really overwhelming. And right now, I'm actually going through an ascension. And so it's like at the top of my mind. So that's why I'm feeling called to share and talk about this today. When it comes to ascension symptoms, they are different for everybody for sure. And it also depends on what you're clearing in regards to what you're feeling in your body and noticing your body. Some symptoms are going to be straight across the board no matter what. But if your dog is acting weird or your animals are acting weird around you, they may be clingy, they may be whiny, they may just like want a lot of attention. Maybe they're like closer to you than they usually are. That's a sign that energetically something is shifting within you and they're tapped and tuned in and are aware of that. um, Another sign that this could be, I think this is the hard one because so feeling scattered, feeling kind of like depressed or grief ridden or sad for no reason or really restless or anxious. I would say that, like, for me personally, I ebb and flow between these depending on what's happening that day and as I move through the ascension in general. And when it comes to those symptoms, they can be really overwhelming because it causes a lot of self doubt. And I think that self doubt is one of the prevalent ones I've noticed that happens a lot right before an ascension or during an ascension. And it's really easy to get stuck in that way of thinking. It's really easy to get stuck on that hamster wheel of like doubting what's happening and doubting yourself and questioning yourself and everything that you've known and kind of getting stuck in there. And I think the one of the big reasons why I'm doing this video and sharing this is because reminding myself that during an ascension, self doubt is normal and it's part of the process has been so helpful for me. And I really do believe that it's very important for other people to understand that as well. And so it's not about feeding that and falling in line with that and letting yourself get caught in that. It's about being able to be the observer. So being able to notice what is happening and recognize it, but not participate with it, not engage with it, not collude with it. And I think that's much easier said than done. And it takes a lot of practice, to be very honest with you. Um, but it's something I always fall into when I'm going through an ascension process, and then I have to remind myself what I'm doing, right? Or remind myself that this is a normal part of the process. And I used to get very caught up in it, and it would get to the point where it was very like very depressive state, very sad. Like I'm an empath, so I feel things very, very deeply. So I would kind of like fall down that rabbit hole and get stuck in there. Where I'm able to not do that as much because I have the awareness that this is a normal part of the process. And what I've found helpful is not attaching to it, not holding on to it, being able to just acknowledge that it's a part of the process and there's nothing that I need to do with it. And that has been really helpful in helping me to be able to still feel it and acknowledge that it's there, but not get lost in that space. Because you can kind of fall into this very like delirium, is what I just heard, like very debilitating, very like suicidal, I want to even say sometimes, very loss ridden kind of state. It's like really easy to try and tumble down that hill into that space. And so I just think it's really important to recognize that that's a normal part of ascension and clearing. And some other signs that you're having an ascension or a clearing, excuse me, is that you may be feeling really exhausted. Um like maybe you're sleeping and you're waking up but you feeling like you haven't slept, or just feeling really tired in general throughout the day. Like you can feel that your body is just exhausted, but your brain isn't, right? There's kind of like this disconnect between the two in regards to like that experience. And this happens differently for different ascensions. So that's one. There's also where you're struggling to sleep. You're having insomnia. You can't sleep. You're feeling really restless. Um, There's also ones where you sleep and you're sleeping for a short period of time, but you feel like you slept enough and you're actually good, which normally wouldn't be enough for you, right? So, like, I would say sleeping patterns being off in any way of what's normal to you is a sign. That's a sign. Also, during ascensions, you really need to make sure that you're drinking a ton of water to help kind of move the energy through you and help you to move through it, because it's taking a lot of your body energy to do the shifting. So, making sure that you're hydrated and drinking a lot of water is really important. Something I always have to remind myself of too during ascensions. Another one is, and this is when you're clearing kind of the top chakras in some ways. Like when you're clearing the heart, there can be a lot of like pressure in the heart or an opening that you feel, right? Throat is like sore throat ish in some ways. Pineal gland is like pressure behind your nose. So having a lot of pressure there, like randomly. And that can also be associated with third eye, which is kind of how I understand it. And then the crown, which the crown can have headaches. It can have light sensitivity, which I think is associated with the third eye. And when you're going through a clearing or a chakra clearing or ascension, whatever you want to call it, there's this tingling sensation that you'll feel at the top of your head sometimes. And it can be really intense and overwhelming. And I attempted to meditate last night and this morning, like I always do. And I really struggled to do that with this ascension that was going on and the tingling and all of that. And that's normal. It's really hard to calm yourself in this state. I think that the more that you fight it and the more that you try to do something about it when it's hard, the worse it gets. So I would say that like being really kind to yourself and gentle with yourself as you move through an ascension or clearing is so important. Being gentle with how you're talking to yourself, being gentle with what you're asking yourself to do that day or get done that day, because irritability runs kind of high through these things, where the smallest things will kind of like frustrate you. You just have a much shorter spot, like, um, I don't know, it's like you have a shorter ability to handle certain things. Like little things will kind of like push you over the edge. If you're feeling that way, that's a sign that there's probably some type of ascension going on in some way for you or clearing. And it's really normal to kind of just feel irritable. I guess that's like the best way to put it. It's like little things will kind of, your fuse is short. We're small. That was what I was trying to say before. Um, it's normal. It's a normal part of the process. And I think it's about how you're talking to yourself through those things and how you're viewing yourself as you're experiencing these things that really changes the way that the experience happens, right? So if these things are happening and then you're talking crap to yourself or you're being mean to yourself or you're being hard on you're making it harder for yourself, and that's also putting you in an emotional place where it's like more difficult and more upsetting, right? Where if you can just acknowledge that this is a part of the process and it's normal and it's okay, and this is just where I'm at today, right? Like, how do you accept yourself for where you are in that exact moment, in that exact day, and just recognize that that's part of the process? And there's nothing that you can do other than just be gentle and kind and loving and try to work with that, right? Try to let yourself be able to hold that as lovingly as possible and just accept that that's where you are today. Because the other thing too is that with these processes, they're different day by day. So one day you'll feel a certain way, the next day you'll feel different, right? It's like I always hear this reader that I really like, and she talks about how like the universe just like sprinkles fairy dust on you, and you wake up and you feel instantly better. And that's kind of like what an ascension and clearing is. It's like eventually, as you move through, I would say a couple days for me now, but when I first started awakening, it would last up to a week depending on how heavy the clearing was. And I also think that determined by how I moved through the clearing as well. Like, was I hard on myself? Was I making it more difficult? Was I listening to my body, right? Like, if I pushed against it and I worked against it, it would last longer rather than working with it and just letting it move through me and just like letting myself move with it and work with it, right? That has actually shortened the time period for me. But I also do wonder if, and I don't know if this is true or not, but in the beginning of my awakening, they did last a lot longer. I remember them lasting a week and a half sometimes, where as I've moved through my awakening, they only last a couple days at this point in time, less than a week usually. But I also think that has to do with you getting better at being able to listen and manage and hold in a loving and compassionate way. That would be my guess, though, from my own experience. But I'm saying this because eventually you will feel better, right? So, one of the things that I also think is really helpful, that has been helpful for me, is to say and remind myself no feeling is final. This is not forever. You're not going to feel this way forever, right? And so, how can I let myself be where I'm at today, let myself feel where I'm at today, and know that this is not going to be forever, but like I need to be kind and gentle with myself here and now, right? And so for me personally, some of the things that I'll do is I will journal. That's really helpful for me. I will make sure to get outside, and even if it's cold outside, it's winter in New York right now, and I still get my butt outside. I get outside and I get fresh air and I walk, even if I'm just strolling very slowly. I still get outside and move a little bit, because it doesn't feel comfortable to completely exercise for me personally when I'm in these states, and it pushes my system to the max. And I think that's part of what like lengthens my process. So that's me personally. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'd be interested to find out if you want to leave it in the comments. But moving your body is really helpful, and not like having to do like crazy movement, but yoga, right? Or gentle stretches, or, you know, going outside and just walking really slowly and smoothly, right? Little things like that. Getting out in nature can be really helpful. I like to listen to music, and sound can be really difficult during ascensions for me personally. I'm very sensitive during these times, like in my senses in general. So, lights, music, all of it. And so, and even tummy, that just came up. So, like sometimes, like the way you're eating might also be different. You might feel discomfort in your stomach as well, or like it's not digesting the way that it usually does. You're not eating the same things you usually are. Eating really grounding foods is helpful. Sometimes you're overeating or you're eating too much, right? That can happen during ascensions as well, as a way to try to you're trying to regulate and take care of yourself when you're overeating in that way, right? Um, and that can be a way that you maybe try to deal with this too. But tummy aches or not feeling right in the stomach or having digestive stuff, that's also associated with these, and from what I know from my own experience. But Doing the things that you really enjoy doing in a gentle way is really helpful. One other thing that I do a lot and have done and learned to do, I had to learn how to do this and it took time, is that during these times I really just needed to let myself lay in bed and just look out my window. I know that sounds so, or just lay in bed with my eyes closed and just focus on my breathing and my body, not thinking, not trying to go anywhere, but really just trying to be as still and present as possible. And that's also helped these things kind of move through me. I used to do it with meditation music. I do that sometimes still too. But that's another thing that has helped me personally. But when you're going through these things and you're having these days, it is really important for you to be as gentle and kind and loving as possible. And try to do little things that you enjoy, little things that you have fun doing. Another thing that I do a lot is I color. And I don't color very often anymore, but coloring is another one that kind of helps me ground and just be able to be present and pass the time in some ways without overthinking. Um, so those are some things that are really helpful for me. I'd be interested if you want to share what's helpful for you down below when you're going through an ascension or a clearing, or if you have questions, I'd love to answer them, be helpful. I think that's why I wanted to talk about this today because I don't think it's talked about enough. And I feel like it can be really confusing and overwhelming when you don't really know what's going on. And I just think it's nice to be able to know that you're not alone. That's what my whole channel is about, is reminding all of us that none of us are alone. So I'm going to leave the video there. If you want to let me know anything about your own ascension, I'd be curious to hear about it. And if you feel like you want to work with me or check out my prompt journals, please take a peek in my link tree in my bio. The confusion and scatteredness, man, it gets ya, I'm telling you. But I love you so much, and this too shall pass. Take care.